Speaking of a movie that's not any good, we got to talk about Madam Web. Not only is Madam Web getting trashed and relentlessly mocked by everyone, but some people in the media are still trying to figure out, hey, if everyone's talking about Madam Web, why isn't anyone going to the box office? But it turns out, as we've said multiple times, the old adage, all press is good press, is just not fucking reality.
Yeah.
When everybody is out there shitting on something, it doesn't mean it's good for that thing. This is not the 1970s or the 1980s where, all of a sudden somebody knows your name, so that's a good thing. No, this is a different era, and all press is absolutely not good press because Madam Web is one of the most talked about things out there. Unfortunately, no one's watching it. We just saw its second weekend have a massive box office drop, but don't worry, Jay, there's a silver lining. Despite the fact that Madam Web has not made as much through 10 or 11 days of release, maybe 12 days of release, as Morbius did in its first 3 days of release, there's still a little silver lining because it didn't have as big of a drop-off as the Marvels. Madam Web sees big drop its second weekend, but there's a bright side. It's literally the fact that it's not as bad as the Marvels. There's a bright side to this news from Madam Web. While its second weekend in theaters saw a big drop, it's still not the worst that's been seen in recent months from a big budget comic book adaptation. The Marvels, which is part of the MCU, had seen a 78% decline in its second weekend, and Morbius fell off by 74%. This is where we're at right now with this, Jay. It only dropped off by 61%, even though it started off at $15 million opening weekend.
Good Lord.
How sad.
I'm glad I'm one that didn't have to see this film. Didn't have to sit through it. Zero interest whatsoever. The red carpet seemed to get a little more attention than the movie itself. I don't know if you remember, Ryan. Morbius was also being talked about a lot.
Yes.
And they decided to re-release it in the theater. And they weren't paying attention.
It's Morbin time.
Turns out bringing Morbius back to theaters just because of a meme wasn't that successful. The studios were like, God, Morbius is trending, man. Everyone's talking about this film. Let's re-release it, man. It'll do well. It was because we were talking about how terrible it was, not because.
Yeah, exactly. It was getting memed, and that's what they thought. This is what they thought 2 years ago. They're like, hey, a lot of people are talking about how bad this movie is. I bet they'd go see it if we re-released it. It's Morbin time. And nobody fucking watched it. Like, it's crazy. And now they're saying the same thing about Madam Web. No, it is not going to see some crazy comeback, like cult following. And again, if you compare it to Morbius in its opening weekend made $39 million. It's 3-day opening weekend. Madam Web has made $35 million domestically over its first 12 days of release because of how soon it got released, right? This is legitimately something that we might not see hit $100 million when it's all said and done. There's actually a possibility that it doesn't crack $100 million. And yes, congratulations. It didn't have as big of a drop as the Marvels. The Marvels opened to $46 million. Still made $10 million second weekend. Morbius made $10 million second weekend. Madam Web made $6 million. It's in fourth place, right? Behind Bob Marley, Demon Slayer, Ordinary Angels, and Madam Web. What an absolute catastrophe for this thing. And the fact that the media is trying to spin it like this, that's the bright side. What an absolute joke.
Guys, people are talking about it. Just hold on. Hold the line. They're coming back to the theater. Trust me. The word of mouth is getting out there. People are talking. It's going to happen. Just keep them in theaters. Come on.
It's
going to push through.
It's webbing time, baby.
Good Lord, man.